What's up, y'all? Today, I want to talk about Indigo Park. It's a newer horror game that got released. It's free to play, and it's episodic, meaning they're going to release it in chapters, but that doesn't mean that the chapters won't cost anything down the road. We really don't know. But essentially, it's a passion project, as the developer Unique Geese describes it. It's a horror game where you're in a theme park and you're exploring and you come across this AI called Rambly the Raccoon. He's like a mascot of the park. And the AI wants to restore the park to its former glory. However, as you navigate and you kind of explore, you kind of run into dangerous things that have other plans for you. All right, so let's talk about the game, and I'll talk about the things I like first. So I like the theme park setting. It's not necessarily original, but it's cool. It's not something I see often, and I feel like you have a literal playground to work with where you can kind of twist and mold all these cool childhood experiences and kind of make them into something super scary. I also like that the game has like open areas. A lot of horror games tend to lean into like hallways and closed spaces. They like to lean on that claustrophobia thing and like being trapped and not having a lot of options. But I would like to argue that being in open areas is even more scary than being trapped in a hallway. If you're in a hallway and something lands in front of you or behind you, well, then the obvious thing to do is move in the other direction. Now, I will say some games do this thing where you do have to eventually like turn back and like maybe take a door right between you and the boss or whatever. Like, that's the thing. But overall, when you're in an open area, it just gives you so much more to work with, because if I'm walking through an open area, I mean, I'm looking everywhere. I'm looking over my shoulder, I'm looking left, I'm looking up. Like, there's so much more that you have to watch for, and it feels like you're super exposed when you're out in the open compared to when you're in a hallway. So I like that they do that. I hope that they do some stuff with that, because for me, when I was playing, I was looking around to see if I could spot something, and I didn't really spot anything, but just the thought, my imagination working against me is what makes those open spaces so good. Whereas in a hallway, you're watching the doorway that you're approaching, or you're watching vents on the ceiling, and that's really it. But having to look all around you and feeling like you can be attacked from any angle, I feel like that's a really big plus for like horror settings. So another thing I want to talk about is like the lack of jump scares, or maybe not the excessive use of jump scares rather. I feel like a game that's a cut above when it comes to horror will know how to make a player feel fear without having something pop up on the screen and make loud noises. Leaning into like random audio cues around you, maybe some kind of soft, scary music playing and ramping up, just kind of things that foreshadow events that come in the game. Like, there's all kinds of ways to convey fear, but I feel like jump scares is like the kind of the cop out, if you will, when it comes to horror games. But I can say that I can at least notice that this game is trying to lean into those other elements and not just throw stuff on the screen at random to spook you. So I want to give them a nod to that. I kind of hope they lean into that more, but I'll get into that later. So another thing I like about the game is Rambly the Raccoon, and not so much because of his appearance, even though that's what like a lot of the positive reviews about the game are. I like Rambly the Raccoon because he kind of quickly narrates a story. He kind of keeps it moving and kind of gives you some lore and stuff as well, and I really like that about him. He doesn't really overstay his welcome, except for the very end of the game, which I'll talk about later. But I feel like I prefer having Rambly tell me about stuff than have my character monologue and just kind of it's very dry, very monotone, like, oh, I think the bad guys are here doing this, and it's just like, it sounds so dry, and I don't know, it feels, I'm not going to say lazy, but it doesn't like, if you're playing a horror game, you're here to learn about a story, and if your character is like halfway monologuing about what they think is happening, that's not as good. I think Rambly kind of talking a little bit about the park and kind of going into details on it is more enjoyable to me. I like that a little bit more. It feels like I'm a part of a story if he's telling me it, versus me just wondering about what's happening. Because the main character in most other games that are scary, not AAA, mostly indie stuff, will kind of like just think to themselves about what's happening. And guess what? I'm doing the same thing, so it doesn't really impress me when they do that. But this is a little bit different. They hired someone to, do the voice lines and stuff. And I think they did a great job of Rambly. So yeah, I like Rambly. So let's get into the dislikes, and I want to start off by saying that, again, I like the setting of the game, which is a theme park, but it doesn't feel very spooky. Like, as you explore the theme park, it literally just feels abandoned. Like someone closed the door, locked it up, left, and that's it. Like, when you're walking around, you literally have no idea what's happening, and it's hard to paint a picture for like the first 20-30 minutes of the chapter, which it took me like an hour and a half to beat it, and I screwed around a little bit. I think it would be more interesting to see maybe bodies of people who came to explore the place before me. Like that would be exciting because that lets me know right away, like, oh, there's something here, right? And you're playing a horror game, so you know something's there. But if you're playing a horror game and you walk into a bathroom and it's spick and span clean, like that's not scary. If you walk into a bathroom and you see blood seeping out from under one of the stalls, you're like, ooh, what's in there? Like, what's happening? So it kind of sets the tone. So it feels like the tone of the game is that this is just an abandoned place, not this is an abandoned place where there's deadly things here to kill me. So like the vibe isn't quite there. I think they need to touch up the atmosphere. Signs of destruction from the mascots going crazy, like broken doorways, windows, the ground cut up, maybe some lampposts fell over, maybe lampposts are flickering. It just feels like someone shut down the park 2 days ago and now you're there to explore it. That's the vibe I get from it. It doesn't really come off as spooky. So hopefully they lean more into that with future chapters, but like that's kind of the heart of the game, is having a spooky atmosphere. And yeah, it's dark and they do have sounds and stuff that happen around you, but visually it looks completely normal, but maybe like construction needs to come out and fix a few things, and that's a huge part of the game. So I feel like if they focus on nothing else, focus on the atmosphere, because I wasn't really feeling any fear when it came to walking around, and I wasn't thinking about the park. I was just looking around. Like I wasn't like, oh man, what happened to this person? Or, oh, what happened here? Like I wasn't having those thoughts. I was just literally just walking through, just completing the game. Next thing on the list is like the lack of jump scares, which I said earlier that's a good thing, but it's a good thing if it's something that you have to use the right way. So not having jump scares excessively is a good thing, but not having jump scares at all can also be a bad thing. So once they get the atmosphere down where it looks spooky, they should have a couple of jump scares just here and there, just to get people on guard. Because once you get jump scared like 2 or 3 times really good, from that point forward, you're always going to be on guard. And then when you bring in a spooky atmosphere, now you're on guard for jump scares, and you don't even need to put jump scares in the game, because me, the player, will be thinking about, oh man, there's got to be something hiding in this toilet when I walk in here, or when I go to look up, there's gonna be something looking back at me. And like they work together, there's synergy, jump scare, a little bit of jump scares, and then having a spooky atmosphere with sounds and maybe light music and like foreshadowing all around you is like, that's the goal. When it comes to jump scares, less is more, but none is worse, in my opinion. So hopefully they throw in a handful, nothing excessive, but I feel like that is also a key component to making the game more scary. So let's talk about the last thing, which is the mascots, aka the animatrons. So there are two in this chapter. Spoiler alert: one's a bird, one's a tiger. We'll start with the tiger first. So what happens is you walk into a building, there's a tiger, he's like on the stage, he seems like he's dead, and then all of a sudden as you get closer, he jumps up and he runs away. Kind of odd, I don't think that's the best introductory. It didn't really spook me. It was just like, oh, okay, this is the thing that's going to attack me later. And I think that takes away from the fear. If something's going to attack you, not knowing what shape or form it takes adds to the fear. So maybe, in my opinion, like maybe just don't do that. But it is what it is. So anyway, you see this lion and you go into this room and there's boxes everywhere. And you hear the lion or tiger, or it's a lion, not a tiger. You hear the lion moving through the boxes and stuff like that. And it's a little spooky. And then finally, like about halfway through the room, he goes to attack you, but immediately boxes fall on his head as you begin to run away. And you're like, oh, well, okay, I don't even need to run away. And you continue to navigate through the room until you get into some offices. And it's like, okay, I mean, sure, he didn't get me right there. And then the second time, as you make your way through, you can hear the lion moving around or whatever as you go through the specific path to get back out. And nothing really happens. I kind of feel like there was a missed opportunity to kind of have a like cat and mouse situation where the AI is roaming around looking for you and like you're just trying to carefully get your way out. It just felt like, because I literally just walked out. Like that was it. I walked out. A cutscene happens. Cutscenes are terrible. Cutscenes are horrible for scary games, because if you can't control your character, then whatever happens is meant to happen. You should just no cutscenes. But that's just my 2 cents. And then he ends up running away or whatever, and you leave the building. So it just felt like a missed opportunity there to build up fear and have a cool, unique experience. It was kind of really on rails, and I don't know. It wasn't very spooky to me. when there was a lot of potential for for it to be spooky. Moving over to the bird, I do like how they did the bird a little bit. So the way what happens is as you leave the lion, the bird is like in a doorway looking at you, like its head sticking out, and it like just kind of slithers out of the doorway as you get closer, and like, ooh, spooky. I really like that. And it happens like a few more times, but then nothing else really comes of it. I mean, towards the end of the bird section, the bird, you have a chase, it opens up the doors and it chases you, but that's not scary because the boss opens the doors, or not the boss, but the mascot appears, you see it appear, and you know, hey, I need to run away from this, right? And it's not really a scare scene. I mean, you're being chased, but one, the music wasn't that great to me, and two, it's like when you're in chase mode, you're more so like adrenaline is kind of going. It's not like you don't want to get caught, but it's hard to explain. It's more of like an action horror thing at that point because you're running from the scary thing, right? Action taking priority over the horror aspect. Where I feel like there's opportunities to lean into the bird appearing and disappearing. Like maybe because what you do in the section is you need to find like puzzle pieces to open up a door. So maybe the opportunity there was to have the bird keep spying on you, just like on Five Nights at Freddy 3, where you see Springtrap, he'll like lean out behind the corner and he's looking at you or whatever when you're in a chair. And then, you know, if you don't take care of him, he ends up killing you. So maybe the bird could have leaned out from behind corners and stuff like that. And then after X amount of time, if you take too long to figure out the puzzle, he smokes you, right? And then if you get through the puzzle, then you have that chase scene or whatever, and like that's cool too. But I feel like, you know, like there was opportunities to lean into the horror a little bit more. And I think that they had something going there with the bird leaning in and out of the doorways watching you, because that was spooky. I like that. So I wanted more of that. But, you know, again, it's chapter 1. They said it's a passion project. They're not professionals, they're just trying it. But hopefully they get this feedback and hopefully they can run with it, you know. Ultimately, I do think the game has potential and I want to see more from it. You know, I want to see more from Indigo Park. I'm not super impressed, but again, you know, if they're not professionals and they're just putting together, this is still impressive in my opinion for people who just are pursuing their dreams. So I'd like to hear what you guys think about the game. What do you think about the video? Hit the like button if you made it this far, and hit that sub button if you want to see more content like this. I appreciate you guys. Y'all stay safe out there. Peace.